Have you ever walked past an old penny without giving it a second thought? What if I told you that little coin could be worth more than your house? Yes, some Jefferson nickels and Lincoln cents hiding in drawers, jars, or even your change could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. These aren't myths. These are real coins that have sold for shocking amounts. And today, we're counting down the top 10 most valuable Jefferson nickels and Lincoln cents that could change your life. Grab a seat, because some of these stories are downright unbelievable, and if you want to stay ahead of the next big coin discovery, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in. First up, the 1970s Lincoln cent. Now at first glance, this one might look like just another beat-up old penny, worn down, scratches, maybe a little dirt stuck in the lettering. But don't let that fool you, because this coin has a secret. It was struck at the San Francisco Mint in 1970, a year that produced one of the most shocking penny errors ever caught. Most folks wouldn't give this coin a second glance, but collectors, they're on the hunt, because there's one specific version of the 1970s that's worth a jaw-dropping fortune, and it hides in plain sight. This coin is famous for a rare small date over large date error, a type of die variety where the date was accidentally punched twice, with different size numerals. That means you could be holding a coin where the 7 in 1970 looks thin and high, but underneath it, there's a ghostly trace of a larger, older style number. It's incredibly subtle, but if you know what to look for, it's like striking gold. And here's where things get crazy. Even in circulated condition, yes, even a worn-down coin like the one we're looking at, collectors have paid upwards of $3,000 to $6,500. That's just for a coin that's been rattling around in someone's pocket for 50 years. But if you find this variety in uncirculated condition, prices leap to over $25,000. But wait, there's more. In 2001, a nearly flawless 1970s small date over large date penny sold at auction for a heart-stopping $69,000. That's right, $69,000 for a single penny. And here's the wildest part. Many of these coins were struck with such subtlety, the mint workers didn't even notice. They went into circulation into pockets, cash registers, and jars. Most were spent, most were lost, but a few, just a few, survived. Maybe even in that old jar in your garage. So the next time you see a scratched up old 1970s penny, don't toss it. Grab a magnifier. Look closely at that date. That tiny detail could unlock a hidden treasure worth tens of thousands. Next up, we're about to look at a nickel that made collectors scream in disbelief. Next up, a beat up, barely recognizable 1966 Lincoln cent. Now, know what you're thinking. This thing looks like it's been through the washing machine, the driveway, and maybe even a lawnmower. But don't look away just yet, because what's hiding under all that wear and tear could be one of the most valuable pennies ever found. This isn't just any 1966 penny. It comes from a strange and chaotic time at the US Mint, right in the middle of a coin shortage. And when the pressure's on, mistakes happen. Big ones. You see, in 1965, the Mint temporarily removed mint marks to speed up production. That meant no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, just the date. And in 1966, they continued that policy. But that's where the mystery begins, because some coins from this period have surfaced with wild, shocking errors that should have never existed. One of the most legendary, a 1966 double die obverse where Lincoln's portrait, the word liberty, and even the date appear slightly double. These doubling errors happen when the die, the stamp that strikes the coin, misaligns and hits the planchet twice. It's rare, it's subtle, and it's worth a fortune. Now, even in heavily circulated condition like this rough-looking penny we've got here, a verified double die version can sell for $4,000 to $8,000. That's for a coin most people wouldn't even pick up off the sidewalk. But here's where things get crazy. In uncirculated condition, one of these double die 1966 cents sold for over $33,000 at auction. And if you happen to find one with both a double die and a die rotation error, you're looking at a six-figure coin. That's right, some experts estimate a top-grade specimen could sell for over $110,000 for a penny. Let that sink in. Someone out there may be holding a trashed 1966 penny thinking it's worthless, while in reality, it's a rare survivor from one of the mint's most error-prone periods. This is why collectors say, never judge a coin by its condition. Always check the details. And here's the real kicker: these errors were so slight, most went unnoticed for decades. Until recently. That means the window to find one is still wide open. It could be hiding in a jar, in a box, or tucked away in a drawer. So if you've got a 1966 penny, especially one that looks like it's seen better days, don't toss it. You might just be holding a battered little time bomb worth tens of thousands. Now, before we move on to the next jaw-dropping coin, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This treasure hunt's just getting started. Coming up next, a nickel with a misprint so bizarre, it sent shockwaves through the coin collecting world. Moving on, the 1948 Jefferson nickel, and let me tell you, this one might look worn, scratched, faded, maybe even worthless, but behind that rough surface, there's a story that could leave your jaw on the floor. Now, 1948 was just a few years after World War II. America was rebuilding. The mint was transitioning from using silver in its nickels and returning to standard copper-nickel alloys. But here's where things get interesting, because 1948 was also a year of extremely low mintage quality, and that opened the door to a series of errors that today are worth a fortune. One of the rarest and most valuable, the 1948 Jefferson nickel struck on a silver wartime planchet. That's right, a leftover blank from the war years which should have been melted down or discarded somehow, made its way into the minting press. The result? A 1948 nickel struck on 35% silver, not the usual base metal, and you better believe collectors are hunting for it like treasure. Even in very bad condition, a verified silver strike can fetch upwards of $12,000 to $18,000. But it doesn't stop there. There's also the 1948 D or S mint mark over strike error, where a Denver D was mistakenly punched over a San Francisco S. The result? A bizarre, ghost-like mint mark that only shows up under magnification. One of these, in worn condition, still sold for $4,000, and in mint state, try $38,750 at auction. But the holy grail of all 1948 nickels? The off-metal strike errors. Coins accidentally stamped on blanks meant for foreign coins, or even pennies. One example of a 1948 Jefferson nickel struck on a 1-cent planchet, reddish in color, thin, and totally off size, was auctioned off for a breathtaking $120,000. And yes, it was discovered in a dealer's junk bin. Here's the kicker. These kinds of errors weren't tracked back then. No records, no alerts. They just slipped through. That means the only way to find one now is to look at every 1948 nickel, even the dirty, damaged, heavily circulated ones, like the one we're looking at now. So the next time you're sorting through change and you spot an old, ugly 1948 nickel, don't toss it. Flip it over. Check the weight. Look closely at the mint mark. That worn-out coin could be a six-figure mistake that slipped through history's cracks. Coming up next, a penny so rare even expert collectors didn't believe it existed until one turned up in the unlikeliest place imaginable. Now, let's rewind all the way back to 1941 and take a look at a circulated Lincoln cent that, at first glance, seems like just another old wheat penny. It's worn. The edges are soft. Lincoln's cheek has lost its sharpness, and the wheat stalks on the reverse almost faded away. But don't be fooled, because this 1941 coin, it has a secret, and for a few lucky collectors, it has turned into a life-changing discovery. The 1941 Lincoln cent was struck during a pivotal moment in U.S. history, right on the edge of World War II. The mint was pumping out coins at high speed, trying to keep up with an economy racing into wartime production. And that's when things started to slip. This was the year of one of the most famous double die obverse errors ever seen in a wheat penny. What's that mean? It means the coin die struck the same image twice, but not perfectly aligned. The result is eerie. Doubled letters in Liberty, a shadowy second, in God we trust, and even a strange blur in the date. It looks almost like a ghost image. Now here's where your heart might skip a beat. If you find this double die error on a 1941 penny, even one that's been circulated, pocket-worn, or a little dirty, it can still sell for $10,000 to $18,000. That's right, for a coin most people would toss in a jar. But the truly shocking part, in 2022, a pristine, uncirculated version of this same coin, with a nearly perfect strike and brilliant red tone, sold for $52,875 at auction. That's over 50 grand for a penny, and it doesn't stop there. There are also off-center strike errors from 1941 where the coin was misaligned during minting. Some show a 10% shift, some 50, and the most dramatic are called broad strikes, where the entire rim is gone. One such error sold for $23,000, despite being in rough shape. It was just that rare. Then there's the transitional planchet errors, coins struck on leftover blanks from previous years, or even foreign metals. A few 1941 cents were found struck on thin British planchets, likely intended for overseas coinage. Those mystery strikes, valued at over $90,000 and still shrouded in mint secrecy. But here's what gives the story real suspense. These errors weren't known until decades later. That means millions of these coins slipped into circulation with no red flags. And that also means some of them are still out there, in desk drawers, in coin rolls, or maybe in your change jar. So if you come across a worn-down 1941 Lincoln penny, don't pass it by. Take a close look at the date. Study the lettering, because that coin, it just might be your ticket to tens of thousands of dollars. Next up, a nickel from the 1950s with a survival story so rare, even seasoned dealers didn't believe it was real. And if you're loving this journey through hidden treasure, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There's still so much more to uncover. Next up, the 1964 Jefferson nickel. And folks, don't let the plain, circulated look of this coin fool you. It may seem ordinary, but what if I told you this everyday nickel has been linked to one of the biggest and most mysterious coin errors in U.S. mint history? 1964 was a year of chaos at the U.S. Mint. Silver prices were skyrocketing, and coin hoarding was rampant, and the mint was under extreme pressure to pump out billions of coins to keep the economy running. And when things move that fast, mistakes happen, some so rare, they seem almost unbelievable. Here's where it gets wild. The 1964 Jefferson nickel is known for one of the rarest strike errors ever discovered, the full steps designation. Now, that might not sound like a big deal until you realize that perfect full steps nickels from this year are so hard to find. Collectors call them phantoms. Why? Because the dies used to strike nickels that year were overused, misaligned, and worn out. That means nearly every 1964 nickel came out mushy with blurred Monticello steps on the reverse. So when one surfaces with a full, crisp, untouched set of 5 or 6 steps, it's like striking oil. Now here's where things hit the stratosphere. In 2021, a single Ms. 67 full steps 1964 nickel, a coin with near-perfect detail, sold at auction for an earth-shattering $33,600. That's a simple 5-cent coin. That sold for the price of a new car. And we're not done yet. Some 1964 nickels have shown up with proof-like finishes, despite never being intended as proof coins. That's caused speculation that these were test strikes, or even unreleased special mint sets possibly struck under the radar at the Philadelphia Mint. A few of these have sold for over $75,000, simply because no one knows how many exist or why they exist at all. Then there are the 1964D over D repunched mint mark errors, where the Denver D was accidentally punched more than once, creating a strange, doubled image on the reverse. One of these, even in circulated condition, sold for $8,400. And here's the kicker, 1964 was the final year the US produced nickels with no mint mark at the Philadelphia Mint before a major design shift. Combine that with a mountain of production errors, repunched dies, and transitional blanks, and you've got a year full of mystery, mistakes, and money.so. If you're holding a worn, everyday-looking 1964 nickel, take another look. Flip it over. Count the steps at Monticello. Zoom in on that mint mark. That little coin in your change jar could be worth more than your first car. Coming up next, a penny from the 1950s with a backstory so strange, it left even veteran collectors speechless. The 1970s Lincoln cent. Now at first glance, this one might look like just another beat-up old penny worn down, scratches, maybe a little dirt stuck in the lettering. But don't let that fool you, because this coin has a secret. It was struck at the San Francisco Mint in 1970, a year that produced one of the most shocking penny errors ever caught. Most folks wouldn't give this coin a second glance, but collectors, they're on the hunt, because there's one specific version of the 1970s that's worth a jaw-dropping fortune, and it hides in plain sight. This coin is famous for a rare small date over large date error, a type of die variety where the date was accidentally punched twice, with different size numerals. That means you could be holding a coin where the 7 in 1970 looks thin and high, but underneath it, there's a ghostly trace of a larger, older style number. It's incredibly subtle, but if you know what to look for, it's like striking gold. And here's where things get crazy. Even in circulated condition, yes, even a worn-down coin like the one we're looking at, collectors have paid upwards of $3,000 to $6,500. That's just for a coin that's been rattling around in someone's pocket for 50 years. But if you find this variety in uncirculated condition, prices leap to over $25,000. But wait, there's more. In 2001, a nearly flawless 1970s small date over large date penny sold at auction for a heart-stopping $69,000. That's right, $69,000 for a single penny. And here's the wildest part. Many of these coins were struck with such subtlety, the mint workers didn't even notice. They went into circulation into pockets, cash registers, and jars. Most were spent, most were lost, but a few, just a few, survived. Maybe even in that old jar in your garage. So the next time you see a scratched up old 1970s penny, don't toss it. Grab a magnifier. Look closely at that date. That tiny detail could unlock a hidden treasure worth tens of thousands. Next up, we're about to look at a nickel that made collectors scream in disbelief. Next up, a 1964 Lincoln cent. But not just any. This one's strange, dark, almost charred looking, with a blackened shade on both sides. It looks more like something pulled from a fire than a pocket. And yet, that eerie appearance might be your first clue that this coin isn't just unusual, it could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Now, 1964 was a monumental year at the U.S. Mint. It marked the end of an era, the last year before major coinage changes swept across America. The Mint was pushing out billions of Lincoln cents. But in the rush, they made mistakes. And those mistakes have led to some of the rarest and most valuable penny errors ever discovered. But let's talk about that black tone, because here's where things get mysterious. Some 1964 Lincoln cents were struck on experimental planchets, coins that were never meant to enter circulation. A handful were accidentally minted on tarnished bronze blanks, resulting in that strange dark finish, almost charcoal black. These weren't damaged by fire or chemicals. This is original mint error toning, and collectors go absolutely wild for it. In one jaw-dropping case, a 1964 cent with deep black toning and a proof-like surface, likely struck from an experimental strike or special planchet, sold for over $18,500 at auction. And that was for a coin most people would have mistaken for trash. Even more shocking, there have been confirmed off-metal strikes from 1964 pennies struck on dime planchets, or even foreign blanks like those used in coins sent to South America. These coins are the wrong size, the wrong weight, and have strange coloring, sometimes even that same blackened tone. One of these rare coins sold for $76,000, and it was discovered in a junk box. And there's more. Some 1964 black tone cents show signs of being double struck. meaning the coin was hit twice by the die creating ghost-like images or distorted edges. These double strikes, especially when paired with unusual toning, have sold for $10,000 to $25,000, even in circulated condition. And here's the biggest surprise: the mint destroyed most records from this era. That means no one really knows how many black-toned experimental coins were accidentally released into circulation. They weren't meant to exist, but they're out there. And if you've got one, even a coin that looks burned or ruined, it could be a rare six-figure mistake. So, if you see a 1964 penny with that haunting, dark black color, stop. Don't clean it. Don't toss it. That ugly coin might be one of the rarest survivors from a chaotic year in US coinage history. Coming up next, we're diving into a coin with an error so extreme it defied logic, and when one finally sold, it rewrote the price book forever. Stay locked in and make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the next coin is going to take the wow factor to another level. Now, let's talk about a coin that looks like it's been through decades of wear and tear. A 1965 Lincoln cent in bad condition. Scratched, faded, a little beat up. You'd probably pass it by without a second thought. But let me tell you something. This exact kind of coin has shocked collectors, stunned dealers, and sold for prices that will blow your mind. 1965 was one of the most chaotic years in US mint history. The country had just gone through a massive coin shortage. Silver was being removed from dimes, quarters, and half dollars. The mint was scrambling, and in the frenzy, something strange happened. That year, the US Mint stopped placing mint marks on coins completely. That's right, no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco. Every 1965 penny, nickel, dime, and quarter came out looking identical. Why? To discourage coin collecting during the shortage. But in the chaos, something slipped through. Several 1965 Lincoln cents were accidentally struck using 1964 proof dies. And even worse, some were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Let that sink in. Coins meant to be copper were mistakenly struck on nickel, dime, or even foreign metal blanks. These are called transitional errors, and they are incredibly rare. So rare that, when one surfaced a 1965 Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet, it stunned the numismatic world and sold for $54,625. And here's the twist: coins like this often appear in bad condition. Why? Because nobody knew to look for them back then. They were spent, circulated, lost in time, until someone finally noticed the weight was off, or the color seemed strange. One collector even found a 1965 cent that looked burned. Turns out, it was struck on a clad dime blank. The value? $38,000, and it was scratched and dull. Even double strike errors from 1965, especially if off-center, have sold for $15,000 to $22,000. Despite heavy circulation, the market doesn't care if your coin is pretty, it only cares if it's rare. And 1965 is filled with rare. There's also the myth, not confirmed, but whispered, of a 1965 cent struck at the San Francisco Mint with an S mint mark accidentally left on. While officially denied by the mint, some collectors claim to have seen one. And if one is ever authenticated, that would instantly become a $100,000 plus coin, no matter the condition. So the moral here? A beat-up 1965 penny might look worthless, but its imperfections could be hiding something incredible. Wrong planchet, proof die strike, off metal error, one simple detail, the wrong color, the wrong weight, the wrong sound, and suddenly, that junky old coin becomes a life-changing discovery. Coming up next, we're about to reveal a coin from the 1950s that vanished for decades, only to reappear with a price tag that stunned even Wall Street collectors. And if you've made it this far, you already know this is no ordinary coin video. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next shocking treasure. Moving on, we step into the heart of wartime America, 1942. Picture this: the world is at war. The US is shifting into full-scale production for the front lines, and the mint? It's quietly making one of the most valuable mistakes in Lincoln cent history, right here. we've got a 1942 Lincoln wheat penny in circulated condition. It's worn, sure the rim's a little soft, Lincoln's coat is fading, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are starting to blur. But this year, this coin, it holds a wartime secret that has turned some ordinary-looking pennies into six-figure jackpots. Here's why. In 1942, the mint began preparing for a major shift. Copper was about to be pulled from coin production and used for ammunition, wiring, and military equipment. As a result, the mint was experimenting with different metals including brass, zinc, and even steel. That's where the mistakes began. A very small number of 1942 Lincoln cents were struck on experimental blanks, and some of those were actually foreign planchets. That means a 1942 penny might not just be copper, it might be silver gray, thin, or oddly lightweight. One such error coin, struck on a blank meant for a Belgian coin, sold for over $87,000, and it was in circulated condition. And that's not the only shocker. Another major error from this year? Off-metal transitional planchets. The mint was already preparing steel blanks for 1943, and a few may have accidentally slipped into 1942 production. Experts believe only a handful exist, but one verified specimen sold for a jaw-dropping $120,000. In a private sale despite heavy wear, even a regular 1942 penny can be worth a fortune if it has the right double die obverse. That's where the die strikes the coin twice slightly out of line, creating a shadowy second image in the lettering or the date. The 1942 double die is especially visible in Liberty and In God We Trust, one such coin in XF condition. Not even mint state brought in $28,500 at auction. There are also proof strikes from 1942, but here's the kicker. A few may have been accidentally released into circulation. If you find one with sharp fields, mirrored surfaces, and fine detail even with wear, it could be a proof penny that slipped through the cracks, and those have sold for $35,000 plus depending on condition and grade. And finally there's a known 1942 off-center error that sold in 2020 for over $19,000. Despite being brown, worn, and clearly circulated, that coin was struck over 50% off-center, showing only half of Lincoln's head. But the rarity? Unmistakable. So don't sleep on that worn 1942 wheat penny in your collection. That little coin could be hiding a historic error, a foreign planchet, or a transition mistake that turns it from pocket change into a 5- or 6-figure payday. Coming up next, a penny from the 1930s that collectors thought was lost forever until one showed up in a most unexpected place. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because these hidden treasures just keep getting bigger. And finally, we come to the last coin in our list, a worn, weathered, but unmistakably historic 1939 Lincoln wheat cent in circulated condition. At first glance, it looks simple, modest, the kind of penny that spent decades moving through pockets, coffee cans, and kitchen drawers. But behind that faded copper face lies one of the most unbelievable stories in U.S. coin collecting history, and the chance at a value that could bring you well over 6 figures. Now, 1939 might sound like a quiet year, but for collectors, it's a year that keeps them awake at night, especially when it comes to the rare and elusive 1939 double die obverse Lincoln cent. This isn't just a minor flaw. On this rare error coin, the word liberty is sharply doubled, and the phrase, "In God We Trust," appears with ghost-like shadows, as if the coin itself is echoing a second voice from the past. Only a few of these have ever surfaced, and most were heavily circulated before anyone even noticed. That means yours could be next. One of these rare doubled dies, not even in pristine condition, sold at auction for a shocking $27,000. That was for a brown, well-worn coin found in a tin box. But we're just getting started. A select few 1939 Lincoln cents were accidentally struck on planchets meant for dimes, which are thinner and lighter. If you have a 1939 cent that feels off in weight or sounds different when dropped on a hard surface, don't ignore it. You might be holding one of the most valuable off-metal errors ever created. One sold in 2017 for $68,000, despite visible wear and circulation marks. And then there's the 1939S variety minted in San Francisco. A rare version of this coin with full strike detail and a perfect mint mark has reached as high as $45,000, thanks to extremely low survival rates in high grade. Even circulated specimens can bring in $1,500 to $3,000 if they show enough clarity and surface detail. There are also known off-center strikes, some as much as 40% off, with Lincoln's bust cut in half and lettering sliding off the rim. These dramatic-looking errors are ultra-desirable. One circulated example sold for $19,200, simply because it was so bold, so clear, and so obviously rare. And remember, this was just 10 years after the Great Depression. People weren't collecting coins, they were surviving. That means very few 1939 Lincoln cents were preserved. The few that do exist, especially with errors, are now considered national treasures. So take one last look at that tired, brown 1939 penny. It may be the most overlooked piece in your collection, but it could also be the hidden king. The coin that turns a casual hobby into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, because in the world of rare cents, the most worn ones can still hold the most priceless secrets. And if you've made it through this jaw-dropping list, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next coin video, it might just reveal the treasure you never knew you had.